one of the things that scared me in our last discussion, Alexander, is when I asked you if the transition had already happened, and I was saying, oh, this crisis we're in right now, it's a real opportunity for the planet, for the environment, and your response was quite shocking.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a transition that we need, or just to realize that the real was actually here from the beginning. You know, like to me, it's not about transiting from point A to point B. It's about discovering point A. And so this transition to me is more of a metamorphosis, trying to understand what we were actually, like the world within the world and not the outside world. And specifically when we discuss about the after COVID, what is striking to me, and actually I'm part of it, definitely, is that everyone tries to explain the cause of the problems we are in through its own discipline. It's because of globalization. No, definitely globalization will be part of the solution, etc. Meaning we are still talking exactly with the same terms, when reality is bringing something that we don't know about, that we need to conceptualize differently, that we need to look at with a lot of humility. And when I mentioned earlier that I feel kind of humiliated by reality, is that I don't have the tools to actually understand. And this is what excites me, is that I feel we need to explore kind of everything, but we definitely need to rebuild concepts. And so we could be transitioning if we knew point B. And I'm afraid that the extreme stories that we have, either the kind of capitalist realism, to put it like Nick Fisher, that say, everything is a market, so don't worry, we will find a way to build a market out of this COVID, is definitely kind of a joke, right? But on the other side, the kind of neo-communism that looks like bad old collectivism is also proved wrong in many politicians and politic strategies today. So I feel that at some point talking about alternative, because we have no alternative, etc., of the economic and political game, shouldn't be about choosing between past oppositions. If you had like insiders and outsiders, we would have to build like a new strategies for beyonders to try and understand like what's a new way of looking at what we've been creating in the end, at least part of it. So I fear that the new world after the COVID might be exactly as an AI could predict it, meaning the extrapolation of the past world, meaning that we would keep very strong where our beliefs are stronger, and where nothing was actually already strong enough in its process of birth will die. So this is my fear, is that we should acknowledge that it's not just a moment of transition, but of thinking, rethinking everything, and not just saying that this confinement is enough to think.
Quick question, touching up on this. Is your perspective coming from a kind of like a optimistic point of view or pessimistic point of view? Because it's what you just described to me sounded extremely pessimistic. That is almost what can be done is a complete destruction almost. It's kind of like it can also create possibilities for a war. This is, like in order to kind of like, how do you leave lots of things behind?
Yes, definitely. Like I don't know. I like to say that I'm let's say optimistic by fight, by trying to actually not just see the world as naive as it can be, but just to try and fight any easy pessimistic view. My if not my hope, but what I feel is that at some point, and what we are just experiencing right now with, I'd say, the comeback of reality, of the real, is that some fictions will not be able to live forever. That part of the world we've been building in the past, I don't know, maybe centuries, maybe decades, is actually breaking down. So I don't know when it shall happen. And I don't want to be this kind of futurist. What I'm sure is that it will stay as long as it is the only systematic narrative. But where I'm feeling optimistic is that everyone facing the same reality today is actually trying to get together to try to understand better and build and conceptualize new points of view. So I definitely think that it shall take a while. But we obviously see already like the way everyone is connecting from every part of the world, and we might be part of this situation right now to try and exchange knowledge and understand better. But I definitely think that in this world of fear of missing out, as you said, Maja, in this world of you need to act, you need to really not be a think tank, but a do tank, like everything is about action now. I don't think so. I think the beauty of action today is to think. And we forgot how to do it. And maybe the way we're experiencing a longer time right now is the best way to do so.
I think this is what Maja always says, that the beauty of action is to think.
It is.
And she always gives us the opportunity to do that, which is a total luxury sometimes, really, in this world, because we really have few opportunities in our lives and in our jobs to really just have moments like this together that we're having to be able to really to think and exchange. And I think
I guess taking the time to think the world might be the most rebellious action. Obviously, at some point, you would need to share it. I love the way Alex Osborne defines creativity. And when I say we live in a world of creativity crisis, he says creativity is applied imagination. Imagination is not enough. You need to apply it to create something, right? You need to go from this over reality to the reality itself to make it land at some point. And so you definitely need to think and then act, obviously. But sometimes thinking is already an action in itself, and especially in today's world in which we try to think with Instagram stories and 140 characters and TED Talks, etc. Like taking the time to really do it as its own purpose is something that is so important to me. And I think it's terrible that we don't value it as something important. I see so many people around me telling me, you should just act on it more strongly and just do that for the next 15 years. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not sure about all of it. Let's take the time and we'll see.
I wanted to ask you one more question related to that, and also related to the work that you do with the UN and the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. How much are the goals adapting to the kind of like new information, and how much part of the thinking that is being placed and put into the advancing the goals and finding solutions are also taking that into consideration? Or do you see like in the next few years, a few months, like completely different goals? Are the goals evolutionary, or are they past?
That's quite a question.
That's a beautiful question. Yes, we had a workshop that we designed a few months back together with some pals at the UN when we tried to design the future development goals. The reason for it is that I don't want to live in a future in which 2030 is just about solving past issues. Right? We don't want to create a future that is just about solving past problems. Mm-hmm. And at some point, the thing is that if you want to build future question marks, you cannot define them. And that's also the beauty, right? It's unknown unknowns. And that's great this way. It's not unknowns that you can know. So I like to see the UN framework as part of the picture. It cannot be the only agenda for 2030. It's something that we need to be responsible for, because when you look at the problems, we can definitely feel ashamed, right? What I feel specifically about the framework that was built in 2015 for 2030, I think it's way better than the millennial goals that we had 10 years before, right? The 17 sustainable development goals are good as, let's say, a map of future problems that we know should be solved. The problems, to me, are first that we don't feel how interdependent they are. When you look at them, you don't understand why climate change is the 13th goal, right? Why is that? Like, we should focus first on other problems. I don't think we have time for many of them. And so the fact that they are so interdependent makes it really difficult to look at them just by this classification from 1 to 17. Mm-hmm. Also, I really like the fact, as I said, that, and to me, this was something I actually experienced and discovered, is that the SDG 17, to me, is the most important, is that the challenge is to collaborate. And I see that with the UN agency, the first challenge is to collaborate with all UN agencies. Mm-hmm. The AI commission that we have is led by ITU, one of the UN commission in charge of telecommunication and technology, so forth. But definitely we need to bring everyone on board. And this is what we do. We bring UNICEF, etc., etc. But I'd say SDGs are part of the picture that needs to be way broader and with a lot of question marks of where do we want to go, and not just solve problems as a leapfrog, as something else to be built, not just solving past problems. And then we should feel more of these interdependencies, definitely. And I guess the 17 SDG could be the best way to enter the map, let's say the framework itself. Mm-hmm.
I like that you asked if they could be in evolution, Vassilis. If you could review them at the same time, then you work on the responses and the solutions, you can review the questions. It's really an interesting way of proceeding, I would say.
Because it's a more dynamic way of thinking the goals, yeah. I guess.
Everything is in movement.
I have one last question, if I may, and that relates a little bit to the conversation that Maja is kind of like mentioned a little bit earlier. Vaccine, going back to COVID-19, vaccine as a possibility, or scientists researching. And then I wanted to ask you, Alexandre, whether can AI create vaccines for future viruses?
It's really interesting. So we are basically part of an initiative exactly on that, an alliance for COVID, actually, together with the UN, the X Prize Foundation, and a lot of others, trying to first find the relevant data worldwide, because we understood that no one is actually measuring COVID in the same way, whether it be through victims or symptoms, etc., in order to help laboratories find the vaccine. We are way far from this AI that could solve everything, as I mentioned, and I really don't believe in it, and I don't want it in the end. But what we already have indeed is AI technologies that can help us synthesize the chaos of information that we are living in order to enable and augment some human laboratories to find the right way. So to me, this is where most of the research is trying to focus on right now. The alliance we are part of is struggling for now to align and homogenize the data that we gather. And that's actually beautiful. Like, every country is facing the same disease, but no one is actually really looking at it in the same perspective. So I think this is main part of the challenge, actually. And I believe AI could be of great help to augment the way we are looking at things and maybe identify patterns that we weren't used to, like in the Go game, like in the StarCraft game that I mentioned earlier. It can find paths that we didn't imagine, as kind of a telescope for science, if you may.